Hi. So in the last video of our portfolio program, Dr. Cooper asked us to go through the process of, what we were thinking and how we approached writing our final capstone paper, to kind of compare the standards of thinking to what our process was. And so I went through the list before I started even researching, and so I can kind of get a lot of it settled in my mind. I refer back to it often throughout writing my initial draft. I will also be referring to it in the final rewrites and such. So I think there's obviously, everybody has their strengths when it comes to critical thinking, and so out of all of them, I think relevance is one that I really appreciate. My issue with it is that I think everything's relevant to, I find all this research and discussions and articles and people talking about, the topic, and I want to include it all. So narrowing the focus, making it significant, again, one of the pillars I is what I've been most challenged with. Also, precision. When I think of precision, I think of numbers, and for word precision, I think it takes special talent to be very precise with words, and so I'm very envious of those who can write clearly and precisely. So that is one thing that I do strive for the most, I think, in my writing. Probably fall the most short. Fairness is something that I've struggled with throughout as well. I've lived a long time, and I think I've thought through most of the issues that I've dealt with many times over throughout my life, and so while I've seen many other sides to certain topics, there's some things that I just don't budge on. So fairness in writing both sides is difficult. In this the final capstone paper, I think that really we're talking about our journey and the topic that we wanted to really, push forward, what we gleaned from the whole process and journey. And so I don't think there's really much of an other side to what we are writing about. So again, fairness is probably good for your daily thoughts and actions, but for this particular paper, maybe it didn't apply as much. Depth and breadth. I think in 20 pages or 30 pages or whatever we all end up with, depth and breadth can be a little tricky. We obviously don't want to reiterate the same things over and over again, but there's a lot of nuances in most all of our topics, and storytelling being mine, stories are worldwide, and culture, there's no culture that doesn't use storytelling, and every facet, I think I've explained that in my paper a little bit, every facet of my life involves a story of some sort. So going in depth is probably, I think I went in depth on some of the interesting points I wanted to make. So we'll see. I when I do my rewrites, we'll see if I think I went deep enough. So, and then logicalness. That is probably another thing that I struggle with the most. What makes sense in my head doesn't always come out of my mouth or onto my paper. So there are a lot of words that I think of, a lot of sentences, a lot of thoughts, and if I don't get them on paper right away, then they go away. If I'm thinking about them, while doing something else, then I think, man, that's a really great idea. I got to write that down, and then it's gone. So maybe the tail end of it was left, and then I have to go back and try and recreate what, everything led up to that. So my kids are always telling me, that made no sense what you just said. And it was like, well, that's because the whole background was in my head. So again, that's one of my struggles. But all in all, this whole process has been extremely hard, extremely frustrating at times, gratifying. On one hand, I'll be very glad to be complete with this journey. It's been long, I think, even though I'm older. It's been a long 2 years. On the other hand, I'm going to miss it a lot. I'm going to, not that I'm ever going to stop learning, but I am going to miss the structured focus that I've had been, I have to do that in my job as well, but this has been something entirely on my own without any, I don't have any financial incentive. In fact, I'm, paying to do this. So so it will be interesting to see what goes on in my world after this. But again, I've used these standards to think about that as well already, just with my final paper, but for the rest of my, near future. So anyway, thanks for listening, and talk soon.